Howard Leong, very welcome to AI6, the podcast. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Joanne, for inviting me. I'm really excited. We met a couple of weeks ago, and now that I'm on your podcast, so it's amazing.
Well, listen, I have seen you in action, and oh my goodness, you are an incredible presenter. But how you teased the whole concept of artificial intelligence to the audience was really remarkable. We'll get to that a little bit later. But first of all, introduce yourself to the listeners and the viewers.
Sounds good. I am the research strategist at J Worldwide. I primarily work on something called the J Institute. It's the new research for innovation arm of J Worldwide. And essentially, we are doing economic development research on four fronts. We call it the four E's. Economic development, economic empowerment, we have the education piece, we have employment piece, and also on entrepreneurship piece. So it's all about young people and how we learn and use data to understand the causes and conditions of young people and how we improve their conditions. And as part of that, I deal with a lot of AI as well. We are building AI products at JA that serve young people in 120 countries. We reach about 23 million learning experiences each year with that. And also thinking about internally for AI adoption. If you think about for the PMO office, the project management office that we have, how could we automate some of the data analysis projects? How could we embed AI as part of document synthesizing, etc. And I also play another identity. I'm a researcher at Oxford Internet Institute. That's where I study the frontier of artificial intelligence or large language models in specific. And because of my background coming from economics, I bridge economics with AI. And one of the things that we do, and with the recent wave with multi-agent models, is thinking about how all these agents are interacting with each other in the wild, and how if you were to increase competition between all these agents, how would that lead to misalignment or unreliability in terms of system performance? So I wear two hats as part of this conversation, but we could get into any direction that you want to.
Well, listen, there's so much that I could ask you, but I'm going to start here. As a young person who is navigating your own career, and you've done a tremendous job, what do you think the outlook is for your peers who are leaving university and entering the jobs market? What's your advice to them?
I would say in terms of, I would borrow one of my mentors, and it's Ashish Bani, who co-authored a book with Marshall Goldsmith, which is a legendary leadership coach. It's called Modern Achievement. I have a chapter in there where it talks about naive audacity. I think right here today, when it is so easy to build new products, it's so easy to start new things. It's all about asking the right questions and executing on the right projects. So there's a lot of things that you could do right now. And I've seen a lot of my peers who are working on different projects. They are not just studying for their masters or doing their dissertation, but they are building startups at the side. And that's how you build a portfolio. And in the future, I would foresee a future where, because of the loss of entry level jobs due to AI, there's less investments into the entry level pipeline. A lot of people are taking on portfolio careers, so they're doing consulting on the side. They're doing this. They attach themselves to one project. Maybe they are doing research here and also doing consulting on the side and also building their startup. So it's a lot of different things that extends yourself, which helps prepare you for the future, and you could pivot wherever you see fit. And I think for me, at least, from my perspective and from what I've gone through and my experience, is the fact that if you were to be able to try and be curious always, and just dabbling with different things in your life, and you figure out at some point, you find a sweet spot for what you want to do. So that would be, what we have been seeing around the world. And I know that it is tough. I know I have peers who are applying to a ton of jobs. But there's also a concept where, thinking about the third door, rather than applying for the job on a job posting and 10,000 people flooding the inbox of recruiters. The second door is that you go to the recruiter, but maybe the third door will be to directly talk to the manager and really understand what's the culture like and how could you contribute. So there's multiple ways, and being creative in terms of how we navigate in the real world would be another advice as well.
That's great advice, building a portfolio. So coming with value through that potential third door that meets the manager where they're at. So turning then to economics and to economies worldwide, we talk about the AI race and the big countries that are leading, like the US and China. We're in Europe, right? And from a European perspective, where do you think Europe is at in terms of the AI race?
Well, I'm not really educated enough to comment about this, but I'll give you a couple of perspective. Of course, one of the mistakes that we have made, it's very over relying on a lot of research from the US. Of course, there's a lot of investments in the US that does large language model research. That's why over the news you always hear Anthropic, you always hear OpenAI. These are a couple of major tech companies who are doing a lot of AI products and building a lot of AI products. But on the other hand, you also have China, who has Quen, Alibaba is building their own model, Tencent, etc. Right? So in Europe, I guess the best model that we have here is Mistral from France, who is no open source. They're pushing for open source. It's a lot of tech investment in this space as well. VC firms trying to invest in this area, and maybe there'll be what I'm seeing is maybe bottlenecks in terms of like innovations in this front because US is growing fast. There's less regulation, but in EU with the EU AI Act, there's more restrictions. A lot of products is being classified as high risk. So there must be human in the loop. So when companies are thinking about investments in this space, there's additional layer of consideration, especially the fact that you need engineers, not engineering resources, but you also need people who are in responsible AI and also who are checking the outputs and making ultimate decision. So it's like a full pipeline versus on the US front or China, they're all about automating and how fast you could be efficient. So that's what I've been observing. I don't. I've just moved to the Europe, so I'm not really educated on this topic yet. But this is what I've been seeing so far.
And when I met you in London about 4 weeks ago now, you presented on inherent bias within the AI models. Talk to us a little bit about bias and artificial intelligence.
Yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of people are talking about bias. They throw the words around what biases are and where do they fail in certain scenarios, hallucination. Those are like the big buzzwords of our generation, right? But essentially we have kind of build a dichotomy in the media where AI is so smart, they could do every single thing. On the other hand, there's some very huge majority who are thinking AI can do the job well. They have biases. They fail at a lot of scenarios. And I'm trying to in that talk in that workshop, I'm trying to show where the edge are. Where's the edge of the cliff? You teeter around the cliff. You see where the what they call the jagged frontier in the research world are. And essentially, there are a couple ways to classify all these failure modes. One, of course, there's like a knowledge cutoff with all the systems. So they train up until a certain cutoff point, say November 2025. That's where they have knowledge. And then subsequently, if you're asking for newer information, you'll have to go through the web and search for information. And with that, they are interacting, say, for example, with Google searches, return the result, and ultimately, maybe there'll be ranking and biases in terms of what is being picked out of all these resources. And of course, in the data corpus itself that's being trained, those are internet data. And who's on the internet, right? It's not representative of the whole world. And the views of those who are blogging, who are writing content, who are posting content, are not representative of views of other people. That's one side of things. Very very simple data knowledge cutoff. But it's also on the other side, right? Based on the architecture itself and how it is being designed, it's always looking for average answers. So, one thing that is of concern is like a part of like political information or any kind of information that is high risk in high risk scenario like medical advice, etc. Is the average answer the best answer for everyone? And it's probably no, because it's contextual. There's a lot of things that is contextual to who is prompting the system and how you prompt it. And we have seen that even if you were to change one word to the other, you get a different response just by design of the system. So there's like a lot of failure modes around this space. And what I try to do with the talk and the workshop is try to tell people, yes, it's very intelligent, but I want you to recognize where is it intelligent and where is it not, and where could humans be part of that loop. And of course, building systems in place and also change management in place that has all this mechanism and friction for automation, etc.
Do you think that we're going to see a future, even in the short to medium term, where countries turn to sovereign AI and build their own AI models to have that cultural context? Or do you think that that is just beyond the infrastructural and commercial capability of nation states?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So in whatever you want to build with large language models, there's a couple of ingredients, right? So one is the data. The other one is you have the compute. Do you have the GPUs to run it? And thirdly, do you have the energy to run it? And also other resources like water, etc. There's so much resources that go into it. And there's like interesting research that shows that if you were to do a Google search versus if you would do a ChatGPT search of the same question, it's 10 times the cost of a Google search. So there is obviously a component at which maybe in terms of national security they might want their own model, etc. I know that's like the political argument for this. There's also a competitive advantage argument where you can't have say Americans or Chinese to infiltrate on political opinions of their public, etc. So you have to put in guardrails. So that's more of a political argument space. In terms of whether it is feasible to align all these models to all the preferences of all these people, just take elections for example. You could vote for your candidate that you want, but you might not get the candidate that you want. And I would say I think that's a good metaphor for AI as well, because you can't just tune it to everyone's perspective and everyone's preferences. It's just yeah, the the scale at which we would need to do it, it's not feasible. And secondly, even if we were to be able to tune to every single people's preferences, is that normatively preferred as a society? You could take social media, for example, where everyone has a different feed
Mm-hmm.
and they are viewing different things. You hate the same argument, you extrapolate to AI, and everyone is getting a different response from AI. How will we know what is truth? Because everyone is interacting with AI and getting different responses and getting different facts. So that's a societal question that we have to answer, and it is hard. And I don't think that one is feasible, and two is practical, and three, even if we envision a future that we want to have models that is perfectly tuned to our preferences, is that really what we need and what we want?
What about then domain expert models that are built for industry specific, or even companies who own a lot of data that can build their own? Do you think we're going to see more of that?
Oh yeah, I mean a lot of companies are doing enterprise modeling. That's the Claude business model, Anthropic's business model is enterprise adoption, right? So how do we how do they build in systems with enterprise and companies? And we do it at Junior Achievement J Worldwide as well, around adopting all these use cases to automate some of those processes that we truly do not need a person to do. Regular data analysis, very simple data analysis, and now we just automate the whole process with just a prompt. And we've been seeing a lot of investment in this space in couple large enterprises, and seeing this trend towards automating some of these processes within the organization, especially the fact that if you were to have a good corpus of data, McKinsey have their own models, all these consulting firms, because they have large repository of information. How could you retrieve information fast enough? And there's a cost to this when humans are searching for it. And AI could maybe do it better, do it faster. But we still have to be cognizant of the biases in terms of where all this information is collected from. But because there's an advantage for which you could have retrieval model, models that retrieve information from your corpus of data in the closed environment, it makes a lot of sense for companies with a lot of internal data to do so.
And what's your view on then agentic AI? It's certainly mainstream where we have these agentic, autonomous, automated workflows that are um, completing the jobs of potentially 10 or more people. Quite powerful. Do you think that's going to become even more mainstream this year?
Um, I came from economics, and the thing that hit most is forecasting and prediction, because you always get it wrong. But the thing sentiment is, if you show me the incentive, I will show you what's the outcome, right? So the incentive, if compute cost is cheap enough, and they could build a model fast enough, there's a lot of incentive to do so. And building autonomous agents for which they could be a website, be apps, Claude could do it, Claude, etc., and all these different apps could do it. So I don't think it's a matter of how, it's a matter of when. And we could see that they are pretty good at coding. And for my research, I rarely code. I'm just prompting what I need to be done, but I still have the ability to read through and really detect all the errors. But the actual baseline coding or the first draft of coding is typically done by AI.
Yeah. And so talk to us about some of the AI powered work that you're doing. What dashboards are you building? What models are you building? What solutions are you building for clients?
Well, of course, the not necessary for clients. I'll give you a couple of examples in terms of what is interesting in this space right here, and what researchers are talking about. I'm not sure whether this will lead to commercialization, but a couple of examples. One, of course, you could do a model at which it could interact with yourself, and there's like actually a model that was released a couple of days ago who does agentic coding. So it teaches itself what's the error, runs the code, it fixes itself, it reports back, it asks good questions about the design of the code. Okay, what kind of parameters do you need here? What's the design choice? Just tell me in the natural language on what to do. You go back, tune it again, etc. So I think that's where you will see a ton of investments, because if you were to, especially I'm checking my own biases here because I work in technology. A lot of tech companies want to automate this process because it's tedious and it costs a lot of money to develop. The other one, related to what I work on, it's if you're building multi-agent systems, and there's like a design choice, right? So if you were to build just one model who are interacting with the real world, versus if you're building 10 different models, so you're using ChatGPT, you're using Claude, using Quen, using Gemini, all these models together, how would they interact with each other, right? So you're thinking about how they coordinate, and do you want Claude to be coordinating with ChatGPT, or ChatGPT coordinating with ChatGPT? Or within ChatGPT family, we want 5.2 to collaborate with 4.0. Like all these are design choices, and each of these models have their own I wouldn't say personality, because we are optimizing the model, but they do certain tasks quite well. So how do you find the sweet spot in terms of building agentic model? And that's where I want to focus on, and I would foresee a future where if you need to do deploy AI in the real world, you probably need multiple large language models and AI interacting with each other to check that they are doing the right thing. or to increase their performance. So that's a new area that I'm dabbling with, and seems to me that there are a lot of interest in this space as well.
Yeah, so we as humans are going to become managers of agents and agentic workflows.
Yeah, I agree. I agree that there could be a world, and and as part of this world, it's not about whether you know how to build. It's about whether you could ask good questions and frame good prompts and have good taste for problems. Right? You could build what in a world where you could build anything and solve any problems. What is a good problem to solve? It's probably something that we have to think more about, and having aspiration as well. Okay, what do you want to solve? And how do you get to the point of solving it with all these tools that you have?
And as somebody who's working in research, academia, and in third level institutions, it's a real challenge for that sector, isn't it? AI, there's a feeling of a dichotomy, a contradiction of wanting to produce your own original content, but then you have these tools that can assist you with your research and your writing. What's your advice to young researchers who, and my daughter actually has just started her PhD. You know, what's the advice to young researchers who are now going through the AI age and feeling a little bit ill-equipped to know how to navigate it?
Yeah, well, honestly, I'm still exploring myself. But I just recently saw a paper where someone built a model that does research on its own, and it did about 140 experiments, and 21 of them is publishable. So quite a good success rate. 15% of the work that is being done is being simulated elsewhere while you're sleeping is actually a publishable paper, and that's exciting. But then again, they always we thought that PhDs and researchers would be the last one to be automated because we are on another level in terms of intelligence, right? AI
Mhm.
can't be more intelligent than us. But I think there is also an argument because of the speed of experimentation with all the systems, they could explore more space of research that we can't do previously. And what I've done and what my own practice is, it's always good to start than to simmer on an idea for too long. And creating content or whatever we do, I think experimentation would be an advice that that would give, using quad code or and ChatGPT codex, whatever that is, to create, and then you see ultimately what fits the target audience or the specific research that you want, whether things lands, whether your theory actually makes sense, what's your hypothesis actually makes sense. It is a abundant bowl of testing. But again, also scary because in an abundant bowl of testing, um, back to the point of asking the question and having to taste the problems, that's where you need to spend more time on.
And thinking about artificial intelligence and its impact on the world and generations to come. You know, you and I sit on the side of AI for good. We know that bad actors are also leveraging the capability of artificial intelligence for their own nefarious intent. But are you optimistic about the future of the world that us and our future generations will live in because of what AI is going to bring to it?
Yeah. Well, I'll borrow a quote from Steven Pinker. I love one of his books called The Enlightenment. And it's basically a history of human progress and why scientific revolution is the best thing that happened to mankind, because we are able to be factual and we are able to argue and advance the ball. And he ends this book of being I can't remember the exact word for it, but being pragmatic in terms of pragmatic optimism or something like that, right? It's it's good to err on the side of being optimistic, right? It just keeps life, going. That's one on
Yeah.
one hand. But you have to be practical about it, right? How do you put in guardrails? How do you put in safety mechanisms? And that's what we need to think about for people who are working in this area, who are using all these tools, and we all have a responsibility as well.
Yeah, and I would add one thing to that you said earlier in this conversation is ask questions, always question the intent, the model, the outcome, the solution, the data. Yeah, we should always question. So a little bit of cynicism, but maybe a bit more optimism.
Pragmatist optimist. So I
Yeah.
love that. I love that we are getting to this point.
Wonderful. Howard, it's a pleasure to speak to you. I could talk for hours about AI to you because you have a beautiful mind, a wonderful mind, and I love what you're doing. You've got an event coming up with colleagues at the University of Oxford. Do you want to mention that?
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to mention it, Joanne. I am hosting a Technology and Society conference in the Oxford Union with the Oxford Internet Institute. That's my department. And what we study here is thinking about the implication of technology on society and how do we understand technology better. And all these conversations that we have today, it will be part of the conference as well, Oxford Union on June 25th. You could visit more information on connectedlife.oii.ox.ac.uk. That's the Connected Life Summit, but you could also search it up on Google to get more information on that front. As part of that, we will be having a AI governance debate in the debate chamber, the infamous debate chamber. So it'll be very exciting, and we'll be touching a lot of topics, not just on AI, but social media, the social media ban in Australia, etc. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Right. So those are important questions, and also education. That's within my heart. I work in education, and thinking about how not better AI could do stuff, but whether we should allow AI to do some stuff for our children and what are the guardrails. So that's Connected Life. Thanks, Joanne, for hosting me. It's been a blast. Hope to see you in future events as well.
Yeah, well, listen, I'm going to try and get on that list of 100 for the public session. I will put the link in the show notes of this podcast as well. Continued success, and thank you for the work that you do on the side of AI for good. And if you're not, maybe you're not connected with Howard, but go connect with him on LinkedIn, and I'll put your LinkedIn profile in the show notes as well. Thank you, my friend.
Thanks,
Good to
Joanne.
talk to you again.
Thank you.